Well, good afternoon again, folks, and thank you for tuning into our channel. My name is Starr, and this is Bob Bylsma, and we're just two guys smoking. We had a lot of conversation about a lot of different topics, and today is one of our favorites to talk about because it's so subjective, and it's cigar reviews. You know, are they useful, and how do we use them? That's the topic. That's the question for today, right? It's like, are they really useful?
I think the first question is, does anybody really use them? I was in a Facebook group this past week, and I was sharing this with you, that somebody asked the question, do you use cigar reviews?
Okay.
And in over 100 responses, literally 90% of the people said, no way, never. And I thought that's interesting because, they're done for a reason.
Right.
And at the same time, people buy cigars based on reviews all the time. I think the most popular is what Cigar Aficionado's Cigar of the Year is.
Right.
How many people go and buy that stick?
Yeah.
Simply because it's the Cigar of the Year.
Yeah.
It's a rating. There are other people that won't smoke anything that's rated under 90, and we need to talk about numeric reviews.
We can do that.
But, it's how much value do they really have? What value do they bring? And if they do bring value, how do you use them? But why do you think people do reviews?
Well, here's the thing. Before I answer that, how do we know we can trust the person doing the review?
Why would we not trust them, Lewis?
Well, because they're supposed to be the subject matter experts, Bob. And I don't know that I trust them not knowing their palate and what they're smoking and how many times they smoked it. So you give me a cigar that you rate as a 92. Well, it's a 92 for you, but it may be an 80 for me. We have varying palates. And what were you doing when you smoked that cigar? Did you do it before, after, or during a meal? I don't know. I mean, you're giving me a rating. I'm supposed to take it at face value that I got to have that cigar because you rated it so highly. Not necessarily.
Well, do I believe they have integrity?
Well, then
they're saying they're doing blind tastings, but I have no way of knowing that.
No.
And are they receiving advertising revenue from the particular cigar company that they're giving a rating for? You have a conflict of interest, and then you can choose to believe that they're doing a blind tasting or not. That's your prerogative.
Right.
But you've at least got to factor that in. But I've certainly. The environmental factors are interesting. Is it something that I'm enjoying and I'm getting flavors because I'm having it with coffee?
Right.
Is my grass being cut? One of my funny experiences was I was working on a cigar review because we've done those, some of them together, some of them separate, and I got this really unique aroma, and I thought, this is different. And what is it? Where's it coming from? And I then realized that I had a yellow pad in front of me. I had dropped ash on it. And what I was getting was an aroma of burnt paper and cardboard. Burnt yellow paper and cardboard. And it was quite interesting.
Okay.
But it had nothing to do with the cigar I was smoking. But you make a lot of good points. And numeric reviews, to me, or numeric ratings, are really difficult, and we've talked about this.
Right.
That whether it's in somebody's wheelhouse or not,
makes
a big is a big factor in that.
Right.
I was reading a review recently where literally one person rated the cigar as a 70.
Wow.
And someone else rated it as an 80. So there were four that were doing these reviews separately.
Okay.
One was 70, one was 80, one was 90.
Wow.
What's the right number?
It's a big swing.
That's a huge swing. And the notion that there's a difference between an 88 and a 92, that's within the margin of error when you look at how numeric ratings are put together. You lose, an 8 versus a 9 here or there.
Right.
In 4 or 5 categories of ratings, you could have a huge swing in where that numerically comes out.
And if you go with that, hypothetically speaking, if you're looking at something in a publication that's using that type of rating system, does that mean that that cigar is not going to sell well because it falls below an 88? I don't know. It may sell more than something that rated a 90 plus. I can't always rely on the cigar of the month or cigar of the year, because that's what someone else has designated, but it doesn't fall into that category for me. I know some cigars that I've had for me were the cigar of the year because they were phenomenal, and they weren't in that publication.
Well, it's interesting. Often the cigar of the year is something that's been around for a while. It's not a new cigar.
Right.
So it's been rated before. It didn't get that. Is there something different about it now that's making it the cigar of the year? Ratings are so subjective, and
Yeah.
particularly when you look at flavors.
Yeah.
We talk about flavors like, for example, grass, hay, dirt, leather. Now, is that what you is that what you're tasting? Do you eat grass?
Or is it subliminal?
Well, or do
You
are
suck
you
on a leather glove?
yeah, your leather baseball glove from when you were 10 years old. Is that what you're remembering?
Yeah.
A lot of the flavors on the flavor wheel are based upon really an association with smell,
Right.
rather than taste.
Yeah.
And that's one of the inherent difficulties of doing cigar ratings is it's all based on association. It's not that is what it is. You're not really tasting a flower or grass or hay.
Right.
You're making that association yourself
Yeah.
in your mind. And what I get may not be what you get.
True. There's a cigar we just had the other day, about 3 days ago, whereas there was a element in that flavor wheel, as it was described. I didn't get the lemon zest.
Right. I remember the lemon zest, and I kept asking you if you were getting the lemon
Right.
zest. Yeah.
But I got the cocoa, I got the cinnamon, but it's like, okay, where's the lemon zest? I'm looking for that effervescence, and I'm not getting it. But
I know you felt ripped off.
yeah, hey, I wanted that lemon zest. But then, if it's a cigar that's rated highly, based on the composition of that cigar, is it or is it not going to be in that person's wheelhouse? Because that's another factor. It may be rated a 92, but it's a Maduro. Well, what about the person that doesn't smoke Maduros? So now they can't try that cigar because they want to, but it's out of their wheelhouse in terms of flavor?
Or they try it and it is out of their wheelhouse.
Right.
I think another factor to look at is how many cigars did the individual smoke in order to generate that rating.
Right.
Did they smoke one cigar and it had construction issues and they threw up their hands and wrote about the construction issues?
Right.
Or did they smoke the same cigar a couple of times over a couple of days? So
Right.
you're smoking it in a different environment as you're trying to put that together, and then you're sort of putting all three of those two or three experiences together. I think that makes a huge difference in terms of how you look at a review.
Right.
Another thing I think that's important is how is the person smoking that cigar? We smoke cigars differently.
Right.
I retrohale almost every puff. You retrohale periodically.
Periodically.
But are they getting those flavors through the retrohale,
Right.
off the palate in their mouth, or out of the aroma? And you get pieces of all of that. And as someone who retrohales, I can tell you the aroma you get if you don't retrohale is different than the flavors you get coming through your sinuses directly the other way.
Yeah.
Which I don't understand, but I find interesting. So I think those are a number of the problems. So how do you find something useful out of all the information that's out of there?
Well, I don't know that I'd want such a huge rating scale like I've seen, where you go from, I guess, the lowest numbers somewhere in the 70s to a 99. I prefer the scale be smaller than that. Like maybe do a 1 through 5. And each one would have a little bit more detail in why it's rated that way, and probably also add some elements to that to answer what you stated. How many cigars did I smoke of this particular brand, this line, and was each time that I lit that cigar similar to the last? So for instance, if it's my first cigar today, I've had breakfast, each cigar I'm going to have that same breakfast, and not anything else, and so I'm gonna get that same taste, right? So I cleanse my palate. Okay, now, but you got to be doing the same thing, because again, if you're smoking that cigar, this is just my opinion, folks. If you're smoking that cigar, and you've had coffee one day, you had a beer the next, wine another day, some other beverage or some other food, you're gonna get something different off of that, because your palate has already been manipulated by what you've ingested, what you've consumed, and so that's going to change it.
Or what cigars have you smoked earlier?
Oh, what cigars you smoked earlier? It's like, oh, I'm going to have some this cigar to start my day, but now I'm going to go into this tasting and smoke these. You're not going to get a true feeling for what that cigar may be built for. It's like it's constructed to give you this, and now you've tweaked it a little bit or changed it somewhat because you got something else on your palate. And everything that I've learned in over the years is, and most recently I found out something that was really exciting for me, because I thought there were only 4 points on the tongue where you can get that flavor profile aside from the retrohaling. That there's 6 now. I don't know where the other 2 came from, but now there's 6.
Well, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
I get almost. It's rare that I get much on my palate, which is why I retrohale so much.
Yeah.
For me, to take something meaningful away from cigar reviews, you gotta read multiple reviews.
Yeah.
And then you try to find generalizations between them.
Yeah.
It's best if you can find somebody who you find to be reliable, that what they get, you get.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully they smoke things that are within your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So I think those are 2 important factors: multiple reviews, a reviewer that you have found reliable over time. Never make generalizations. We've talked about that before.
Right.
If they're reviewing a Lancero, don't go out and buy a Toro.
No.
Because the flavor could be just completely different.
Maybe they should just simplify it, because that's what I've done. I smoke cigars, and either I like them, or not so much, or not at all. And if I like them, here are the things of that cigar that I like. And not so much, well, it wasn't one that I was ready to put down, but I'm not writing home about it. I'll still smoke it. I don't like it, never will buy it again, or something. But you know what I'm getting at is, just let's simplify it a little bit more. And I don't know what rating scheme they would come up with, but this 0 to 99, it's not beneficial to me, because what you said earlier, someone rates it a 90, someone else rates it a 70. Why such a big swing?
Which one's right?
Yeah.
Okay, now confess, Louis. You've bought the cigar of the year before, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. Thanks for putting me on the spot, Bob. Yeah, but I have.
I have too, more out of curiosity.
More out of curiosity, and more so because I knew that brand. And I said, wow, they made Cigar of the Year, I'm going to get it.
I did it out of curiosity with brands that I hadn't smoked a lot of.
Okay.
But the one that I will say they got right, the Andalusian Bull could be the Cigar of the Year every year as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I'll give them credit for that one.
Yeah.
Whatever I think of any other year.
Which makes it so hard to find, right? I mean, it's one of those cigars right now that if you find one, buy it. If you could find a box, run to buy it, because they sell out so quickly.
This is the variant of our discussion of don't buy a box.
Yeah.
You find a box of those, you buy
it. Yeah. Hey, we should have added that as a caveat, right?
Early and often.
Yeah. Early and often, because you're going to find, something that may be the unicorn of cigars, if you will. It's, it's a good cigar. And maybe everybody doesn't believe that, because you might have some folks out there, like any brand, say, I don't know why these guys are giving that cigar such hype, but we enjoy it.
And I've heard that from people.
Yeah.
And I have no idea where they're coming from. A couple of final questions. Do you find value in reviews?
Not so much in the numerical rating, but if I read through it, or I should say as I read through it, I'm looking for the finer points in the detailed description of that cigar and why they rated it that way. And if I agree with that information, I'm more inclined to accept that it's been, through its verbiage, rated so, rather than depending on the number rating. The number rating doesn't factor in for me. I want to see, what did you get from that cigar, and do you know what you're talking about?
I tend to look for things like complexity.
Yeah.
You see someone who describes a variety of flavors that they get at different points.
Right.
To a lesser extent, I'll look and see what they identify as those flavors, because if they're in my wheelhouse, maybe I'll come away from a review being open-minded to something.
Okay.
I probably end up more closed-minded more often than
Yeah.
not. But I don't find it's the best place to go to find a cigar.
No.
Where do you think is the best place to go to find the cigar to smoke?
For me, the best place is not in a publication. It's when I visit any number of brick and mortar shops that I go to, I usually ask if it's not the tobacconist, if they have one, it's usually the shop owner who smokes cigars. Tell me something about this cigar. That's the question I'll ask. Tell me something about this cigar, because oftentimes they'll approach you with a couple of questions. Well, what do you like to do when you smoke a cigar? What do you like to eat? What do you normally smoke? I say, I smoke a variety of things, but have you smoked that cigar? Yes, I have. Tell me about it. And I listen to what they're telling me, and if it sounds like something I want to try, I'm going to try the stick. But if it sounds like something that's not going to be in my wheelhouse, thank you very much for telling me about the cigar. Now, what else you got? Because that's not enough for me. And I still would read some of the more non-numerical ratings on a cigar that you can find, just to see if they speak to me in terms of what I want to try with the flavor profiles that I'm looking for.
And some have just great entertainment value.
And then there's that.
With crazy...
you mean like that barbecue chicken?
The barbecue chicken, or the one that had chartreuse.
Oh, God.
And my first thought on that was, it tastes yellow-green.
Yeah.
Only to discover that chartreuse is actually a French liqueur.
Right.
I'd never heard of it before.
No.
Before that, but yeah, I mean, there are some that are.
Yeah.
I'm convinced are done strictly for entertainment value. But much like you, I guess maybe a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Hang out with people that smoke cigars.
Yeah.
And as a group, you get a pretty good sense for what people smoke.
Right.
Use them as resources.
Yeah.
And you may or may not like what they recommend, but generally speaking, I think your chances of finding something you like are much better than if you just read a review and just take it at that at face value.
Yeah. Which, again, before we move on to anything else, is that when you're with a group of friends and you're all smoking cigars and hopefully something different, what we do in our group is, if I have something that, because I know your palate, that I think you might like, here, Bob, here's a cigar, man. I want you to smoke this. Tell me what you think. And that's what we do, folks. This is a culture. That's what we understand about this culture. And if you pay attention to your friends and what they're smoking, we share. Oftentimes it's something I don't have in my humidor, and I'm thankful that you want to share that, and we'll exchange cigars and see. And there's no harm in Bob telling me, I didn't quite like that cigar. You know what? Fine. Here's another one. Try this. That's what we do. We have fun with this because we're learning more and more about the variety of cigars that are available to us, and start to build on our collection of them, and also continuing to develop your palate. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that my palate has grown throughout the years, because what I smoked when I started is not so much what I smoke now.
And I'm the same way, and I think what I found is not only did my palate shift, but it's broadened.
Right, right. Well, folks, that's a lot about cigar reviews, and we hope that you make an informed decision about reading them, getting some value from that, and maybe creating your own system for rating a cigar. But buyer beware, all reviews may not pertain to you. Well, again, I'm Louis Starr, and this is my co-host Bob Bylsma, and we want to make sure that you subscribe to our channel. Check us out. We got a lot more in store for you, and give us a like, send us some comments. And we're two guys smoking, and that's what we do.